Good afternoon, everyone. There's still a few people in the waiting room that are entering, but I did want to just start by welcoming everyone to our session today. We are so excited to have you with us. We are having a session on Google Docs today. Google Docs is the second of a three-part series that we are hosting. The Teaching and Learning Center is hosting. And my name is Mai-Ly Duong. I'm excited to see everyone on our session today. For those who joined us last week, thank you so much for coming back. And for those of you who weren't able to join us last week but are with us today, I'm so happy to have you with us. I am the kind of instructor that I love to see faces, so feel free to turn on your video if you'd like. It'll make me feel like I am talking to real people, but we are going to be looking at some slides and then doing some hands-on. So you might not your video would be helpful to me, but no pressure at all. I love to create a community and an environment that is safe for you to communicate with me. I am also an instructor who welcomes questions at any time, so you don't have to wait till the very end to ask questions. The way that we have structured our sessions last week as well as today and the remaining third session next week is if you feel free to ask questions. This is more of a discussion, while I do have a list of items that I do want to go over with you today. Feel free to interject. I will, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't have the ability to multitask and present and lead a discussion as well as monitor the chat. So I will defer to our team, our ITS team, as well as our TLC team to monitor the chat, as well as anyone who's holding up their hand or raising their hand. If not, feel free to unmute yourself and just say, kind of call attention to yourself, and I can totally stop what I'm doing and address your question too. So I promote, and that's the kind of environment I promote when I teach live in a classroom, and hopefully we can carry that over to our digital classroom today. For those that don't know who I am, my name is Mai-Ly Duong. I am currently full-time faculty, associate professor, and associate director of our special care clinic here on campus in Mesa. We have a special care clinic that helps, supports, and provides care, dental care specifically, for people who have disabilities and complex medical conditions here on our Mesa campus. I am a graduate of ATSU as well, so I like to consider myself an ATSU cheerleader. I have my doctorate degree in dental medicine as well as my master's in public health from ATSU. So I'm very passionate about ATSU, and I'm very thankful and grateful that I have an academic career here at ATSU, and that I've been able to return and give back to an institution that has raised me to be the healthcare provider that I have come to be and hope to continue to be. One of my passions is technology. I have found that it is a great way to educate others, right? We're all academicians, and we have a shared passion for spreading knowledge and educating our students and being able to help them succeed as best as possible. And technology has definitely been one of those resources that I've used to deliver on that. And one of the specific tools that I have used over the years is the Google Suite. And so I was super excited that TLC asked me to lead us in a facilitated discussion about Google Drive, which is what we worked on last week, as well as Google Docs today, and then we'll continue with Google Slides next week. Before we move on to Google Docs, I'm also an educator who likes to build upon things that we learned before. So if I may ask, if I can have those individuals who joined us last session, can you give me 3 things that you remember from our session last time on Google Drive? Anything that you can remember about Google Drive. I can open up the chat, so I am seeing the chat right now if you want to just enter in, but it would be great to kind of have somebody share. Oh, unlimited storage. So Josephine said unlimited storage, and that is, in my mind, again, I haven't asked ATSU or our IT or our ITS if there is a limit. I prefer not to ask because I don't want to know that there's a limit. But one of my favorite things about Google Drive and our Google Suite here in our ATSU network is I've yet to be told that I have used up all my space in Google Drive. So I love that.
So open this up. Okay. Sounds good.
If I may, if you are not contributing to the discussion too, please mute your mics. Alicia Lacey says, sharing a folder. One of the greatest things about our Google Suite series or apps is that we have the ability to share not just folders, but files. And it really allows our students and faculty to collaborate. And that's one of the great reasons about sharing. So instead of having to attach files and downloading files, you can share files. You can also have the ability to control how the end user or the recipient accesses that folder or that file. So for example, I might share a folder with Alicia Lacey, but I might say, you know what, Alicia can only see the items in my folder. She can't open them up and edit. She can only open and view them. Or it may be that I give her editing rights and I say, you know what, in this folder, Alicia can open this file and change it, or she can move this folder here. And so I, as the owner of a folder or a file, have the ability to control how the users that I have shared my items with, how they interact with that folder or that file. Oh, David confirmed no limit. So yay. Timothy Johnson says that, oh no limit. And Forrest says simultaneous users. And that's one of the great things about being able to collaborate when you're working, and we'll actually put that into action today in Google Docs. We'll be doing a hands-on activity where you will be in groups and you'll be working on the same Google Doc at the same time in real time. And so one of my favorite things about that is, especially in today's world, that even before COVID or before, you know, our world as it is today, I would have a lot of student work that they would work together, and they could be at home in, you know, their own separate apartments, or they might be at home during Christmas break all across the country, and they could be working on the same document at the same time. And so being able to work at the same time is actually pretty awesome. It's just anywhere you have internet, you can access that document, you can work. So I've worked with people on the same document when they're on a different continent before too. So it's pretty cool. Let's see here. There's Pearl of Wisdom, new streaming drive can organize your Google Drive like an Endo's drive. I'm not really sure about that comment, but we'll kind of table that to the side, and I may find out some more information about that too. But I appreciate everyone's contributions, and I'm glad that you, oh, you mean the like being able to use Google Drive like you know, I don't know. I'm just gonna pause that.
Offline?
Offline. Okay, so using it offline. Yep. So we'll touch a little bit on about that again today, but we did mention that you have the ability to download the Google Drive app onto your desktop or your laptop. And if you plan on going on a trip that you don't know if you'll have Wi-Fi, you can have access to your files and be able to adjust, you know, make changes to that Google Drive or any of the files and folders. And the next time you have Wi-Fi or an internet connection, that will then reconnect and update everything. So being able to work offline is also a great feature about the Google Suite. Thank you so much for contributing those comments. I'm so happy to hear that we were able to pass on some pearls of wisdom to everyone who joined us last time. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen so that we can present our session today. So today we're going to be, whoopsie, that's not what I meant to do. Present. So for today, we're going to be talking about Google Docs. Now, Google Docs is the equivalent to Microsoft Word. I don't like to assume on a general basis, but being that we're all educators and we are in the realm of business at some point in our life, I'm pretty sure we've all used Microsoft Word at some point in our life, whether it's been for school or in work, we've all used Microsoft Word. And so Google Docs is the Google version of Microsoft Word. There are many features that are very similar, and many of the things, I would say 99% of the things that I've needed to do in Word, I have been able to do in Google Docs. There's been one specific thing, and I apologize, in the moment right now, I forget what that one thing is, but I remember one of my previous sessions that I when we've taught or done a workshop on Google Docs, we discovered that it was something we could do in Word, but we couldn't do in Docs. And I'm forgetting what it is. And if I remember, I'll let you all know. Or if Dr. Monica Ninad is online, she might remember because we had talked about that. But most of the time, for 99% of the things that I need to do as an academician or a lecturer, a speaker, an educator, I've been able to do in Google Docs. And so today's session is getting you comfortable in Google Docs, because even though many of the things that you can do in Word, you can do in Docs, finding them or navigating to where it is, where the button is to do what it is that you need to do, isn't always in the same place as it is in Word. And so hopefully today's session is also just orienting you to the Google Docs environment. So Google Docs is part of the Google environment or the Google Suite. Just to highlight, all of the things that are very similar that we talked about in Google Drive is across all of the different different apps, Google apps. So synchronization and accessibility. So synchronization is this concept of being able to sync across all platforms. When I make a change in a Google Doc on my laptop, when I access that Google Doc from my phone or from another electronic device, I can see that change. So that ability to synchronize across all platforms is a great feature, because it means as long as I have internet access or I have an offline, the Google Drive for offline use or whatnot, I can access these documents anywhere at any time. That also speaks to this concept of accessibility as well. So my whole thing is, you make a change and you can access it as well if you have internet access. It is very similar to Microsoft Word. It is a word processor, and so it allows you to create text documents. And then Google Docs allows you to create, edit, and collaborate. Now, Microsoft Word allows you to create and edit. I know that Microsoft Word has, they have a whole series. It's called like OneDrive, and you can access all of their Microsoft programs now online. There's a membership subscription and things like that. So I'm pretty sure they have the ability to collaborate as well. Our ATSU network uses Google Docs, not Microsoft. So again, that's another reason why we hosted these series to hopefully start to introduce and orient our ATSU team or faculty and staff to begin to be more comfortable in this environment, since you have access to the Google Suite. But within Google Suite and across all of the apps in Google, you have the ability to create, edit, and then the most important or the most significant or special thing about it is that you have this opportunity to collaborate, and not just collaborate asynchronously, but synchronously or at the same time as someone else. So if, for example, Holly and I are working on something and she makes a change at her end, while we're working on it at the same time, I can see exactly what she's doing in the moment as well. And you'll see that once we break out into groups. So I do want to just touch base again. We've already touched on it, but there is a Google Suite for desktop. So it allows for offline access, especially when you're traveling and things like that. We're not going to go into detail about that. You can definitely look up some video tutorials on that. If you're interested in getting more information or help with that, our TLC program department is available to you. And so I would encourage you to reach out to the Teaching and Learning Center for any and all questions you have that in regards to your ability and your skills in teaching and learning. At that same note, on that same note, I will encourage you that if there's ever anything that you need or want, not just with Google Suite, but there's other ideas, other areas of need that you have that you think can make you a better educator, please reach out to the Teaching and Learning Center. That's what they're there for. They're here to support us as faculty and staff. And if it's something that they can help provide, whether it's connecting you to resources or creating webinars or connecting you to other people on campus that can help you, please reach out to them. They're always looking for ideas for more content as well as more opportunities to create for you, our staff and faculty here as well. There's also Google Suite for mobile devices, and it requires additional steps and additional downloading of apps. So if you are going to participate with us today during our hands-on activity, I will encourage you to make sure that you are logged in on a desktop or a laptop. Otherwise, if you're using a tablet, an iPad, or your phone, you actually have to download Google Drive as well as Google Docs as separate apps, and then you have to bounce back between the two or toggle between the two, and it gets really messy. So if you would like to join us today for our hands-on activities, please join us via a desktop or a laptop. Awesome. So we're going to dive right in. I'm going to demo a lot of the different features and orient you to our Google Docs environment. And as I demo everything, I'm a big believer of telling, showing, and doing. So I'm hoping that I'm going to tell and show you guys, and then we'll go ahead and break everyone out into smaller groups or into breakout sessions. We will have a different member of our TLC and ITS team, at least one person in your breakout room, so that you have a facilitator and someone that can mentor and guide you if you have any questions, but they'll kind of guide you on the steps and the action items or the activities so that you can practice as well. I'm a big believer in repetition as a way to learn, as well as applying and using your hands literally to apply what you're learning. So let's see here. I'm actually going to come out of my slides presentation. And one of the first things that I want to do and show is to help you find, open, and create a Google Docs. So the best way for me, there's many other ways you can do this. And there are, once you get more comfortable with the Google environment, you'll find that there's many different ways, and that you might find a shortcut or ways that are more comfortable for you. But for a beginner or for someone who has yet to use Google Docs, the best way to navigate to Google Docs, and I only do this also so that we get into the routine of really getting a spatial recognition of where things are in the digital world. But for many of you, if you understand what Google Drive is a digital filing cabinet. So the first thing I would recommend you do is log into your ATSU email account. When you log into your ATSU account, you'll notice that there are some squares up at the upper right corner of your email environment, or your email dashboard, I guess. Once you click on those dots or those squares, a drop-down menu will appear, and you will go, I prefer, and again, you'll see that I have an icon for Drive and an icon for Docs. When I'm getting ready to create a document, I like to go into Drive first, because I like to make sure I create my document in the folder, or the Google Drive folder, or the Google Drive subfolder that I want to store. So in addition to creating a Docs file, I also want to organize my files in my digital filing cabinet. That way later on, if I, because if I go straight into Google Docs, I'm creating that, and then later on I have to figure out, I have to move it to whichever folder. So from the very beginning, when I create a document, I like to start in my Drive and in the folder that I want my Google Docs file to live. So once I click on the dots or the squares up here, a drop-down menu will appear, and I'm going to go click on my Drive. It's going to open up my Drive. I've already set my internet settings to open my Drive in a different tab. So you'll see that it opens up my Drive. And I've been with ATSU for 12 years, and so I have a lot in my Drive. So I apologize. It looks a little messy, but and I try to be as organized as possible. But so once you're in your Drive, last week we had created a folder. So for those of you who this is your first time, I would encourage you to create a new folder in your Drive. You can create a new folder by clicking on the new icon in the upper left corner. When you click on it, a drop-down menu will appear, and you can select Folder. And when you click on Folder, you can name your folder. Now, last time what we did was we went to new folder, and we had named this TLC series. So we had created a TLC series folder. Since I already have it created, I'm going to navigate and scroll down to my TLC series folder. Inside my TLC folder, or my TLC series folder, I'm going to double click on it to open it up. Inside my TLC series folder, I have a subfolder called Google Drive, because last week we did Google Drive. But for today, I'm going to create a subfolder. So I'm going to go back up to New. I'm going to click New Folder. And this is my new folder, or my subfolder, and I'm going to name it Google Docs, because this way, anything that we do today, I'm going to store in this Google Docs folder. So this is just my way of organizing and keeping everything together in one place. So after I name it Google Docs, I'm going to click Create. And inside my Google Docs folder, now I'm going to go ahead and create my Google Docs that we're going to work from today. So again, And again, we also talked a little bit about knowing or being mindful or being cognizant of where you are in your digital filing cabinet. Because in a real filing cabinet, you have like a physical filing cabinet sitting right there, and you know, like, you know, you pull the top drawer out and you're in the third folder in and you're looking in it. But in a digital filing cabinet, we don't have that luxury of something physical. So in Google Drive, you'll see that there's kind of this, and forgive me, I don't know all the vocabulary, but I usually will use this menu bar or this bar at the top to kind of tell me where I am in my Google Drive. So the first icon will tell me that I'm in my drive. In my drive, I'm in my folder called TLC series. And in my TLC series, I'm in a subfolder called Google Docs. And so that's how I know where I'm at any time. And when you hover over these things, you'll see that my mouse pointer changes to kind of like a little hand, and it allows me to toggle back and forth between different folders if I need to. Wonderful. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and create a new Docs file. Google Docs has the ability for you to create a completely new blank Google Docs file, or you also have the ability to create from an already established template. So if you're going to create a flyer, or you're going to create a newsletter, or you're going to create a resume, and you want to start with a template, you do have that option. That is not something we're going to go over today, but you have the ability to go in there at any time and explore and have fun on your own. And there's lots of other tutorials. If it's something you're interested in learning more about or getting more hands-on experience about, you can let that TLC know about it. But today we're going to focus on creating from a blank slate or from a blank Docs file. So we're going to click on New, and I'm going to scroll down to Google Docs. And when I hover over and click on this arrow to the right, I have the option of creating a Google Docs from a blank document or from a template. For today's purposes, we're going to go with a blank document. So I'm going to click on blank document, and right now it's going to pop up with create in a shared folder. So one of the great things about Google is that it'll tell you if you are in a shared folder. It means that you are creating something in a folder that many other people have access to. And so it's kind of like a warning or kind of like a red flag that says, hey, before you create this, you need to know that it's in a shared folder and there are other people who can access this. So whatever the settings are for that folder, some other people may be able to see it. So if you don't want other people to see it, you should probably cancel. In this case, I've already, last week, based on last week's activities, we had worked on sharing. And so I know that other people are sharing. I plan on sharing this document, so I'm okay with proceeding. So I'm going to click create and share. I'm going to go ahead and create and share. And it's going to bring me to a new Docs file. And it's going to look very familiar to a Microsoft Word document. But one of the great things about this is, especially if you don't have the Microsoft Suite and you're not paying for an online, for the abilities, because the great thing about Google Docs is, like, for example, for me, I have Microsoft Word on my laptop, but it's only for my laptop. So I can't share, I can't collaborate in Microsoft Word on my laptop. But if I'm going to work on this Google Docs with other people, I know that by doing this, by going down this road, I can share and work and collaborate with other people. But in this environment, you can find that there's very many things that are very similar to Microsoft Word, and we'll kind of go through that today as well. I apologize. So the first thing that we're going to go over, and I'm going to have to toggle over because I did not create a second, I did not grab a second device for me to look at the list of things that I'm going to do. So we went and we found, opened, and created a Docs. Next thing we're going to do is kind of go over share, comments, and chat. Oh, good. So these are common things that are actually present in many of the Google Docs that we have. So I apologize. Well, we're going to share, comments, and chat. So up in the upper right corner, you'll see this very familiar icon called share. Again, right now, it's private to only me. So when I hover over it, I know that it's private only to me. If I want to share, I can click on share. And oh, it's going to ask me to name before I share. So I'm going to go Google Docs rocks my socks. I'm going to click save, and now I've titled it. And now I can share it with anybody that I do want to. We've already gone over sharing, so I won't go, I don't want to spend too much time on sharing because we did spend a lot of time on it last week. You can feel free to watch our Google Drive episode or session from last week to learn more about sharing if you'd like. But for this is how you could share. And again, this sharing feature is across all of the apps in Google. I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew about this blue icon called share. The next thing that I want to go over in Google Docs is this idea for comments. For those of you who are familiar with Microsoft Word, there's this feature in Microsoft Word where you can track changes or you can make comments. So for example, if I start typing, hello, my name is Mai-Ly Duong, and let's say I am reviewing this and I just want to leave a comment for someone that I'm collaborating with. I can actually highlight, like for example, I can highlight this, and anytime I highlight or select something in the Word document, you'll see that a little bubble pops up on the right side with a plus sign. That allows me to add a comment if I'd like to. And so for example, I might say, I'm gonna add a comment right here, and I'm gonna say, is the U supposed to be capitalized? And if I leave it just like that, it's gonna be a comment for everyone to see. But let's say, for example, actually, I'm going to go back to share, and I'm going to share this with David so that I actually have someone to comment. But let's say, for example, I can highlight this, or actually, I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to leave another comment. And this time, I can actually direct a comment to someone specific who has access to the document. And I might say, this is going to be at David Lopez, and I'm going to say, I don't like the word hello. I think I prefer the words good morning. What do you think? And I can either address that comment directly to David. This option for assign to David Lopez is if I'm assigning a specific task. So I'm just gonna go to comment, and then it posts, and then now David can go in and review the comment I directed at him. He can mark it as resolved. He can drop down and he can edit what I can edit, but he can delete the comment that I made if he wants. But this is a great way to kind of leave comments, but not necessarily make a specific change to the document. So the comments feature is a great way to collaborate, ask questions that are kind of like, that doesn't require that you change something in the document itself. And then you'll see that he responded saying, I don't think so. So then you can kind of track a conversation as well. Now, the other thing that you can also do inside the Google Docs is you can actually have an ongoing live conversation with somebody as well. David, if you look on this upper right corner, you'll start to see who's actively accessing the document. And I don't see David anymore, so that means I can't convert. Oh, there he is. So you'll see that as you share your documents, and anybody who's actively on the document, you'll see that their profile picture pops up. So I can see that David is actively on this sheet with me. If I roll over to this little bubble that says show chat, I can actually start a conversation. I can go, hi, David. Oops. Are you there? And now we're collaborating in real time, working on this document together. Now, there is an advanced feature in Google Apps that allows you to actually have video teleconferencing embedded like within the Google Docs environment. So you're not having to switch between Zoom and Google Docs, but that is an advanced feature. You have to do an add-on, and it's not something we're going to go over. But I always know that I have different levels of users in my sessions. So I do want to recommend little things like that, because one of my goals as an educator is anytime I have an opportunity to interact with somebody, I hope that I'm learning something from them and they're learning something from me, even if it's just one pearl of wisdom. So throughout today, we'll talk a little bit about pearls of wisdom and some advanced features for some of those who may be advanced or power users. But then it says, David left. And so, you can have a conversation, you can actively chat with somebody. So you might say like, he's not here, but this is a great example. Even if he's not here, I can actually still leave a message. I can say, whenever you have time, please add a table, or please add a paragraph on elephants. And when I send that message, even though he's not live on the document, Google will actually email him to tell him that I left a chat or I left a message for him in this Google Docs. And so one of the great features, again, even if you can't collaborate in real time synchronously, you can still collaborate asynchronously, all within this environment. So we went over share, comments, and chats. I'm going to go over the menu bar real quickly. We'll go over mode, format bar, and then inserting images, and then we'll get into hands-on activities. So the first thing is the menu bar, which is this. It's a standard menu bar that most apps and most of the Microsoft programs also do. I'm going to just quickly go through them, not in depth, but just so that you have an idea of where things are located in Google Docs. In case you're looking for the same thing in Google Docs while you're trying to transition from Microsoft Word to Google Docs. So under File is very many of the similar or common things that you would find in the File menu of Microsoft Word. So you can create a new document, open an existing document, make a copy. This is where if you wanted to email this and share it with someone, you can download it as many other options. You can download it as a Word document. You can download it as a PDF if you'd like. Those are the two features that I often use in Google Docs. I'm not a frequent user of the offline feature of Google Drive because it does require a lot of space on your laptop or your computer. So when I'm traveling, I don't really download or use the offline app. I just download the files that I know I'm going to be working on when I'm out of town or whatnot, if I don't have internet access. So I'll usually download it as a Word document so I can make changes. The other thing about Microsoft, I apologize. The other thing about Google Apps is that you have this option for version history. So one of the things that you can get anxious about as a user when you have a document that you're working on with multiple people is this idea that somebody somewhere might might erase something or might change something that you don't want, or that you end up finding out, oh, we changed it, but you know what? We don't like it anymore. We want to go to an older version. Google will keep version histories of your file. So it might be that, you know, you work on something today and then, or you worked on something last week, and today you realize, you know what, the changes that I've made since last week, I don't really like. I want to go back to an older version. You can go back to an older version by using this menu option where it says version history, and you can see version history and you can look at different versions. Obviously, this is a new file I created today, so there's only two versions, one of when I first started at 12:23 and one that saved a couple minutes ago. So, and then I can click on the different versions to see at that moment in time, what did that version look like. This is also another feature that I use, especially when I am reviewing my students' work. It might be that, you know, so many students are working on this file. I don't know who did what. I might go back and I might just look at the different versions because somebody may have written something that I'm like, you know, I'm a little concerned about why they wrote that. And I'll look through the version history to figure out which student wrote what, so I can maybe have a side conversation with them. Or again, I'm also a very personal person, and I like to say, you know what, Joseph, when I'm debriefing with my students, I can say, you know, I noticed that Joseph wrote this. Joseph, what do you think about that? And, you know, what if I pose this question to you? Or I noticed that Susie wrote this. What did you guys all feel about that? Because, you know, and this is what I think about what Susie said. And it's not that I'm putting them on the spot, but I think in my mind, I'm acknowledging their work. Or I can say, you know, Matthew, I noticed that you did this to this table. I think it's a great job. So when I have the ability to know who did what, I think that I can better communicate with my students. So that's one way that I use version history, other than if I needed to go back on something that I did and I didn't like what I did and I want to go back to an older version. Or maybe somebody deleted something and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they deleted my work. I need to go back and get my work. So version history is a great feature of Google across the board. Other things in here is page setup, which I have had a question about before. And this is where many people have asked me how I control the margins of my Google Docs. So it took me a while to figure this out, but it's under page setup, which is under file. You can also change your page color, your page size, changing it from portrait to landscape as well. So page setup is under file. Edit is, again, very similar to the options that you have in Microsoft Word. So cut, copy, paste, undo, redo, a lot of those things are very similar. Find and replace if you use that option very often. View is, it allows you to kind of view just the way you view your documents. So you can view in print Oh, I apologize. Well, I guess there's no change in that. But you can also, I like to have a ruler. So if you don't like the ruler, you can undo the ruler, but I like to see the ruler. There's this feature about document outline. I'm not going to go into that unless we have time today, but I don't think we will. That's more of an advanced feature where it allows you to navigate, especially if you have a document that is 100 pages or 200 pages. You can actually set what I like to call bookmarks so that you can navigate to different sections. So if you have labeled your 200-page document, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, you can easily navigate, if you're in chapter 1 and you want to go to chapter 10, you can use the outline to navigate quicker to chapter 10 if you like. There's this mode that I like to kind of touch base on, and mode is, again, it's allowing you to control the way people interact with the Google Docs. So right now, I'm in editing mode, which allows anyone who has access to the document to directly make changes in the file. But if I change the mode to suggesting, it allows people to like track the changes. So if David were to make a change to the document, it doesn't completely, like if he deleted a word and suggested a new word, it would actually do a strike through the word and then the word that he's suggesting. So it's very similar to track changes. And then viewing allows users to only read and print. They can't make changes directly. And you can change that through the view option, or you can go over here and that option is still available on the upper right corner as well. Format allows you to change different things about the Word document. So the text, the way things are aligned, the amount of columns that you have, line spacing, things like that. So anything that you want to format your text or your content or your items in your docs is through this format. In tools, I think the one that I use a lot is this word count, because sometimes, especially, when I'm doing a manuscript, a journal might say you can only have 100 words, or 100 characters for the abstract or whatnot. I'll use word count to kind of get that information. That's where you find it under tools. Then the next menu bar that I'd like to go over is this format bar right here. And it's very similar to Word. So if you're familiar with Microsoft Word, you'll notice that a lot of things are very similar. This is where you can select the font, you can select the size, bold, italics, underlined, you can select color and highlight color. This is also where you can hyperlink and insert images. One thing that I found, many people are very familiar with the other things like, alignment. But one thing that I do like to make sure I show people is creating a hyperlink. So if I wanted to hyperlink my name to, let's say, my LinkedIn profile, that way anybody who accesses this Word, if they want to know who I am, they can, click on this link. What I can do is I'm going to navigate to my LinkedIn, and this is my LinkedIn profile. I'm going to highlight and select my URL. I'm going to right click and click copy. I'm going to scroll over to that Microsoft Word. And now that I've selected my name, anytime anybody clicks on my name, they can be directed to my LinkedIn. I can either hover over it and right click and select link, or if I highlight and I select on this icon that says insert link, I can now paste that link in, click apply. And now anytime someone hovers over my name, they can have the option to go to whatever link that is, which is my LinkedIn. So I always like to show people that because I don't think we have that option, or it's a very popular option or feature in Microsoft Word. So I always like to highlight that feature when we go over the format bar. All right. The other thing we went over mode, format bar, and the last thing is inserting media. So inserting media is, I always like to show people how to insert images inside Google Docs. Now, oftentimes when you're in Microsoft Word, you'll either like go to the internet, copy a picture and then paste it into Word, or you might go into the internet, find a picture you like, download that picture to your computer, and then insert it into your Microsoft Word. You can do all of that in Google Docs. So you can go, like, let's say, for example, I want to insert a picture. So I can insert, I go to image, and I can upload from my computer if I want. If I upload from my computer, it brings up the window and I can just navigate to whichever picture I want to upload to. I can insert image and go to my drive and insert a picture from my drive if I have pictures saved on my drive, and it pulls up pictures Google is smart enough to pull up pictures that I already have existing. I apologize for the graphic nature of my pictures. I'm a dentist, so you're seeing a lot of dental images that might be a little bloody. I apologize. But you have that option to insert pictures from your Google Drive if you like. The other thing that you can also do in Google Drive that I personally like to do is search the web feature, which allows you to actually literally search the web within your Google Docs environment. So in this case, I might type in mountain lion, and I can type in mountain lion, and Google will bring me pictures of a mountain lion. I can click on the picture that I want and select insert, and it will directly insert into Google Docs. So that's what I really like. The other thing about images is when you double click on the image, you can, you have this option that says image options up here, and then you can adjust and you can change the size of it if you'd like. You can change the way it interacts with your text. So, do you want it over your text? Do you want it under your text? Do you want it in line with your text? You can choose to change the transparency of the picture if you'd like. Make it brighter, contrast it a little. So you have some flexibility with the way that picture looks in your Google Doc. So I wanted to highlight that too, because that is something that I would like you guys to practice and play around with. I'm gonna take a quick minute and check to see if anyone has questions before we break out into our rooms for about 10 or 15 minutes to go over hands-on stuff. Any questions?
Mai-Ly, we had one that was circulating through the chat. Dr. Ferris wondered what the best way would be if a student has shared a Google Doc with him. Would you recommend adding it to your My Drive, or would you make a copy? What is the best way that you would do that if someone has shared with you?
That is a great question. So if you add it to your drive, the student, because I assume in this scenario, the student owns that Google Drive. So because you're adding it to your drive, your student owns that drive or owns that file. If that student deletes it from their drive, it will automatically delete from your drive. And so if really the purpose is for you to keep a record of it, I would recommend that you make a copy of it or download and re-upload to your own folder. But when you do that, that student no longer has access to that file because now you own it. So any changes you make to it does not get reflected on that student's doc file. So it just depends on what your intention is and how you want to interact with that. Many times, like for example, we have reflective essays in our dental school, and students will write their reflective essay in Google Doc and share it with me. I will often add it to my drive so that when I edit and make comments on it, they see it. But I will later on either download that file to my own personal storage, so I have a copy in the future, or for records, or for using it as an example in the future or whatnot, because I know that that student owns that file. And if that student ever leaves, they can also choose to remove the sharing rights, so then I will no longer have access to it. And so oftentimes I will grade it, make comments on it, so that they can see it on their end. And then at the end of the course or at the end of the semester, I'll download everything so I have a copy of it in case I ever lose access to it. I hope that answers your question, Dr. Ferris.
Mai-Ly, this is Jim. I'm more along the lines of just staying organized, working with 15 different students writing papers for a course. But when they share their document with me, it's in documents that are shared with me. And right. So, I've got 400 documents in there, and trying to find each one and keeping it organized is what drives me insane. And so how would you organize that into a folder, where like a folder for that course that right. I have, that type of thing?
For sure. So if you're not worried about having access to it later, like, those concerns, I would definitely always add it to my drive. So in my drive, for example, and I'll just use my, let me share my screen again. And I hope this answers your question now that I better understand your question. So let's say, for example, all of you are my students, and each of you are going to share your Google Doc with me. In our Google Docs course, this is our course, and over the course of the next semester, I will give you a lot of Google Docs assignments or whatever. I will create a folder, let's say, for example, Jim Ferris. Now that I have that folder, every time you share a document with me, I'll add it to your folder, and that's how I would do it. I would create a folder for each of my students, and either each of my students or each assignment right? You can organize it in different ways. And so if my purpose is I want a folder where I have all of my, all of the assignments from you, Jim, my student, I'll create it that way. Or for assignment 1, I might, maybe my folder is, it's just assignment 1. Every time a student shares their assignment 1 with me, I will add it to this assignment 1 folder. So when I go into my assignment 1 folder, I'll see all of my, assignment 1s for all of my students, and I can grade it that way and stay organized like that. Does that answer your question?
Sorry, I had to unmute. Kind of, sort of. How do you take that folder, and put it in that file, I'm sorry, that file that the student shared with you, and put it in a folder that you own?
For sure. Let's go ahead and do that right now. Can I ask David Lopez to share a Google Doc with me and label it Jim Ferris? I'm doing that right now. Thank you. Okay, so you guys are seeing my inbox right now. The moment that David Lopez has a Google Doc file, he's going to name it Jim Ferris. So it's Jim sending me his assignment number 1, let's say. The moment I see it in my email.
Mai-Ly, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Can you share your screen again? We only see the gallery view.
Yes. So sorry. I thought it was shared the whole time. Thank you. Better? Can you guys see my inbox now?
We see your inbox.
Perfect. Okay. Not yet. Still waiting. But once David shares, okay, here it is. So he just shared this out. I'm going to open up the email, and this document has been sent to me. It's assignment number 1. When you hover over this box, you'll see this icon with the drive and the plus sign. It says add shortcut to drive. I'm going to click on that icon, and now I'm going to organize. I'm going to double click on my drive, and I know that it's in my TLC folder. I'm going to go to my TLC folder. I'm going to go into my Google Docs folder, assignment 1. And once I'm in my assignment 1, I can now add shortcut here. It's adding that assignment to that specific folder. And now, let's say it's Saturday night and I'm ready to grade all my assignments for assignment number 1. I go to my Google, my drive. I go to my TLC folder. Oopsie daisy. TLC folder, my Google Docs folder, my assignment 1, and there's Jim's document. And now I can double click on it and edit.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Yay. Any other questions? I realize that it is 12:48 and we may not have time to do a breakout session. We can do Q&A or just jump into a breakout session for 5 minutes. Brittany, what do you think?
I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat unless anyone would like to come off mute. I think we would be okay to go in a breakout room if you're still game.
Awesome. So let's go. Hello, everyone. So as we all re-enter the main room, I didn't know if now that we've had a few minutes with our facilitators and mentors, if there were additional questions. There was one question in our breakout room that I was going to bring up to our ITS team to kind of take a look at. I don't know, David, if you saw in your email, I deleted, when you sent me something, I had the option for add shortcut to drive. I remember, and I usually see an icon for add to drive, but that wasn't there. So I went with add shortcut to drive. But then when I deleted that email, my shortcut no longer existed and I had to re-request access to it. Do you or Holly, can you give some insight into the sharing rules and regulations about that?
Correct. So your add shortcut and your add to drive are basically the same in one. The reason you had to request for access again was that was a document that was made up prior to the whole Jim Ferris add to document. So I removed it from your access. And then when you went to reopen it, you re-asked for access. So it should have came up normally.
Interesting. Because the question in our room was, if you delete the email, does it delete the shortcut?
Negative. The shortcut would have remained. I removed your access thinking you didn't need it any longer. And then when you went to find it, it was no longer there.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't something, okay. So, because I initially answered, even if you delete the email, the shortcut should still exist in your drive. And that is true.
That is true. Correct.
Okay.
Does the shortcut go anywhere?
The shortcut basically is a file extension from the original file to her drive. It's basically like adding it to her drive.
So anytime I click on it from my drive, it's shortcutting me to your file on your drive.
Yeah, but if that file on my drive is deleted for some reason, the shortcut goes nowhere, right?
That is correct. So actually the shortcut will be removed as it was on hers when she tried to access it.
So it sounds like that feature of add to drive was actually a better deal than add the shortcut. And you know, if you're interested in keeping the document,
it all depends on what the sharing privileges are to that user. As Mai-Ly was just a viewer and collaborator, she wasn't an owner. Once I delete the document from my side, it ends the document's life history.
And removes a shortcut from my view, so I can't even
access it ever. Yeah.
So that's good clarification. So there's no longer add to drive icons. It's just add shortcut. It's the same thing. It's just different words.
That is correct.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Because even then before when we were adding to drive, it was still literally, you're not literally adding a copy of it to your drive. You are adding a link from your drive to the owner's version. So it's really just a change of words, not a change of intention.
Correct.
Thank you. We are 1 minute away from 1 o'clock. I recognize that we all have responsibilities at 1 o'clock, or at the hour. So are there any last comments? I see that Holly had placed a resource on there. We just want to make sure we thank everyone so much for joining us today, and feel free to let us know if you have any questions. The TLC is available to you. Our ITS team is also available to you with any questions. I always tell everyone who attends my sessions, once I lecture for you or once you meet me, I'm yours forever. So feel free to contact me at any time via email. And so I look forward to seeing you guys again next week. Hopefully we'll be going over Google Slides. Have a great week, everyone. Thank you.